We just finished our first year, of the Base 11 Caltech partnership, which, started with the aerospace mentorship and internship with our students for residency. I would love for you just maybe to share in your own words, maybe a description of the program so that our viewers can get inspired by what's possible for them, and some highlights from your perspective. We didn't know whether it was going to work, when we first worked on it, but here we are a year later and celebrating, this success. So maybe share from your perspective description and some of the highlights.
Right. Caltech embarked on this partnership with Base 11 of taking summer interns from the community colleges. And so you helped us identify these high potential, low resource students. Mm-hmm. The summer interns have a research project of their own, and they work in laboratory in close collaboration with the graduate students. Mm-hmm. So these graduate students are highly motivated, but they necessarily don't have opportunity to work with such students from community colleges. So it has been beneficial to everyone, and I think I have drawn great satisfaction from this program and the success of the program. Because as you mentioned initially, I was very skeptical whether such a program is possible and whether the students would really derive any benefit from such a program. But after the completion of the program this past summer, I'm a completely changed man. So one of the things that the program does is to take these students. So they have an independent research projects of their own. Mm-hmm. In this case, they were all working in the aerospace department. Right. So these were problems related to aerospace disciplines in aerospace engineering. Mm-hmm. One of them was working on the design of an aircraft wing. Mm-hmm. Another student was working on how the fluid flow occurs in a granular bed. Mm-hmm. And another student worked on hypersonic re-entry problems. And so these are, very complicated problems, even for graduate students. Right. But I was amazed at the progress the students were able to make in these projects. The students, at the end of their internship, they make presentations in a seminar day in front of their peers and also, visitors and the campus community. And I was blown away by, the presentations the Base 11 interns made from the community colleges. So this shows we have the opportunity to inspire students for the future. These students obviously had, interest in math and science, but one of the problems we have in teaching math and science, whether it be in high school or in community colleges, they are never able to make the leap and make the connections. What is it good for? Whether this math, whether they're learning calculus or differential equations, or in physics, they're learning mechanics or electromagnetism. What is this good for? It's very abstract. We never make those connections. So they have the opportunity to go into the lab and put this to practice. They are able to see that math can do things for them, that they are able to understand, and they are able to make progress, and they are able to have breakthroughs. The cycle of innovation starts with these fundamentals of math and science, but then you do hands-on experimental work to explore these ideas. You have a hypothesis or you have a question to ask, and then you explore this and see whether you have a good idea. Right. And some of the times, these things may not work, but even failure is success, because you learn through this failure what worked and what did not work. It's good to know what doesn't work, so that you don't go down the wrong pathway. It's better to find out in the laboratory that these things don't work. So that is the thing. I think that's the thought process I think the students are able to learn. At the same time, it was a great experience for our Caltech graduate students, because this provided them an opportunity to interact with student community, which they would otherwise not interact with from community colleges. And in this process, I think their experience have been greatly enriched. And I could see the excitement and the sparkle in the eye at the end of this internship, that they really had great satisfaction, that they were able to convey. They felt comfortable as teachers, as mentors, because I believe that immaterial of how old you are, you always need a mentor.
That's right.
And in whatever you do. And they were able to derive that satisfaction of being able to mentor, especially the students who come from very disadvantaged background. And they are showing them the path to a better life, a professional advancement, and also perhaps instill in them some culture of research, so that they will be able to go and be innovators they will go and convey the excitement of math and science to their peers in community colleges and say, there is something beyond what we learn in the textbooks or in classes.
Right.
I think that dream has come true.
Yes. Talked about the impact for the PhD students, and we were thinking of initially, the focus, of course, was on the interns. But I was so inspired to see the impact, for the PhD students. But it made sense because I think we both have learned that you learn more by teaching what you're learning instead of just taking it all in. And when talking to them, they shared with me about how rewarding it was and how they learn more by having to teach it to the students.
Exactly. If you're not able to explain concept to somebody else, that means you don't understand it yourself.
Yes.
So this provides an opportunity to clarify their own thought process by teaching and mentoring. So that means they are conveying their life experiences, but also it's clarifying their thought. One of the things which even very seasoned scholars and teachers do is to teach new class, teach a new class in a new subject. That's the way they learn and they clarify what they're teaching.
Right.
So there was a class I was teaching for almost 20 years on and off, but every time I teach the class, there is something new which pops up in my head. So because things become more clear, and you are able to convey that idea better.
One of the things that you've really helped prove, and something that one of our partners, Dr. Andrew Jones, his 30 years experience in the community college. Community college has had this kind of sometimes a negative stigmatism of, well, that's for students who are not really high performing. But we've all known that no, some super bright students are in the community college that if we find them and give them access, you shared with me, and I'd love for you to kind of give your perspective to the viewers. How did these students perform in comparison to the other PhD students from across the country and undergrad students from across the country? How did our community college students perform in comparison to the others?
If you didn't tell me that they were from the community college, I couldn't tell the difference. Right? Their performance was as good or better than the undergraduates coming from the best of the best schools, because ultimately the math and science is the same for everyone. 1 + 1 is always 2. When they come with such strong background in math and science, as some of the students in community colleges do, they are at the same playground. But what they did not have is what they can do with the math and science, which the students going to other, say, 4-year colleges, the exposure they had, these students did not have. But once you put them in an environment where they can make use of their knowledge in math and science, then they flourished. Because one of the things which helped them was we made sure that these interns were living on campus, on Caltech campus, and they were living in the dorms, and with, say, 400 other interns, from across the country, who are working on Caltech campus on various different projects across the campus in many, many disciplines. So these students were able to interact with them. I think that also helped them build the confidence, and also to be able to exchange ideas, build friendships. I think this is the very important part of the internship program, that they are able to come here, not only work in the labs with these great graduate students, but also have the opportunity to mingle with the greater community and develop this, relationships, and also to exchange knowledge. There is great debate going on in these dorms about sharing, having a scientific debate, and that's part of Caltech culture. It's very intense, and people are always constantly thinking about science and technology and engineering that they're constantly focused on. They're always asking questions. What if we can do this, or what if we can do that? That cross-fertilization, what we call interdisciplinary research, is very, very important for the future.
This is a paid internship. I mean, these students, they get to live on campus, that's paid for, and they also get paid as, researchers, if you will. And the reason that's important is that, again, when we talk about students who are low resource, oftentimes they don't get the opportunity to have this type of enrichment because they have to go work, at McDonald's or
Right.
somewhere just to be able to survive.
Exactly. Or support their family.
Or to support their families. That's exactly right. And that's what I've understood is that many students don't even get a chance to finish community college
Yeah,
because they have to go support their families. So this is one unique component here.
Right.
And I think I'd love for you to give me your comment on this. When we were at dinner, one of the Ph.D. students mentioned, listen, I've been mentoring interns from across the country from the undergraduates for a long time.
Yes.
And he says what was different about your students is their level of hunger. They saw that they're not taking this for granted.
No.
Right? Give me your perspective on that, because I think it's important.
When the students come from, say, community colleges, as I mentioned, they haven't seen exposed to great research labs. And they probably have never stepped into a research lab,
Right.
because they might have done experiments in the physics or chemistry lab, as part of a class, but they have never been to a research lab. So research is really an abstract notion. This is something which people think they're in the white coats and walking around with the test tubes or things like that. So once they come here, they find a variety of things to do, and they're able to apply their knowledge, and so they're able to blossom in this kind of an environment. So as you have said, they are hungry for doing things that what they can do with the knowledge they have gained. And I think that is the transformation which we saw in this summer interns. When they came on the first day, they did not know. They were, somewhat anxious. But I think by the time they left, they were full-fledged researchers. And I'm confident that they could go on to be even great graduate students. And if they choose to pursue research, they'll be great researchers because they have had a good beginning.